Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Switch places there. Welcome, one and all, to a special 2 p.m. edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hola, mis amigos y mis amigas.
How is everybody doing today? A lovely day here in New York as the weather really starting to turn to fall. Lovely to see you all here today. Part one of a day-night doubleheader, of course. Tonight's debate is going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern. We will be live streaming that to YouTube and to Rumble. So I figure we'll start at 8:45, right? That sounds about right. So we usually do. Right. Yeah. Sounds fair. Sounds fair. Yeah. So 3:56 here in the YouTube chat to start things off. 4:54 over on Rumble. Great to see everybody here. Please smash that like button. Let's juice that algorithm here. In the afternoon for a matinee, we have a lot to get to today. A lot of news from all around the world, and we're, of course, going to do a debate preview tonight. But a little bit of housekeeping first. Something was brought to our focus over the past couple of days, and, sometimes we like to highlight things that we get, suggestions from you guys.
We're kind of like a community board in a way.
Yeah, just like a bit of like community posting. A couple of you guys pitched this to us as a segment. We don't really think it's worth that kind of time, but we are happy to shout it out here. So this is a Cambridge University Press study, Homosexuality and Comradeship, Destabilizing the Hegemonic Masculine Ideal in Nazi Germany. So this was an academic paper that a few of you guys sent to us via DM. And I'll read the abstract. Like I said, we don't have time to read the whole thing.
We know a lot of our viewers are struggling with this. They think they can't be a Nazi and a homosexual, and it was actually very common.
Yeah, like there doesn't need to be the kind of stigma that you may think. No. So I'll just read the abstract. We're not going to read the whole piece. We don't have that ton of time.
I mean, go to any letter bar.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
I mean, clearly.
This article looks at experiences and perspectives of homosexual men in Nazi Germany, and particularly at homosexual veterans of World War I. How did homosexual men perceive hegemonic masculinity and ideals of comradeship during the Third Reich? The central argument is that the Nazi regime's emphasis on heterosexuality as an essential masculine trait was contested by homosexual veterans who attempted to exert agency by actively defining notions of masculinity, the nature of their homosexuality, as well as their status in the Volksgemeinschaft people's community. The ways in which homosexual men perceived homosexuality in relation to hegemonic masculine norms were diverse. Whereas some tried to argue for the compatibility of homosexuality and marital masculinity, those who were arrested often distanced themselves from the homosexual identity. The testimonies of veterans available in Gestapo police interrogation records suggest how subjective constructions of sexual identity both undermined and reinforced hegemonic masculine ideals. So there's an intro. You can look this up if you'd like. Just go to cambridge.org, I believe it is, and just Google, I don't know, the link is really long. Just Google Third Reich homosexuality.
This is 2024. You can be a queer Nazi openly.
Yeah.
And we know a lot of people are struggling with that right now. A lot of them came into our comment section. It's all right. We see you. You are seen
Right.
as a
Yeah.
gay Nazi.
Exactly.
You are seen.
Exactly. And so we thought we should just do that as a little PSA. Not as a segment. I mean, we don't have that kind of time. We have a double header today. We're doing a show at 9 o'clock, so we couldn't do the whole thing. But it was important, we thought, to get that out there. So thanks once again, everybody, for being here.
Nazi men loving Nazi men.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
This is
you
part
want to
one.
dress up as Ilsa in some sessions, and he dresses up as Ralph. That's cool,
right.
man. It's cool.
That's right. So this is, like I said, part one of a two-parter today. So we want to kind of jump right in. Just one more thing that I want to mention to you guys is that Thursday's show will be at noon instead of 9 a.m. My baby's last pre-planned well visit to the doctor after being born, is a 6-week visit, is this Thursday in the morning. So we will be doing the show slightly later. It'll be a noon show, not a 9 a.m. show. So just a program note for your calendar. All right. But that being said, let's get into our segments today. Obviously, tonight is the presidential debate, the first possibly of 3, or maybe the first of just 1, between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. In advance of that debate, polling guru Nate Silver predicts Trump has 64% chance of winning the Electoral College in latest forecast. That's right. Nate Silver has the Silver Bulletin now on Substack. He was able to monetize his predictions. He doesn't have 538 anymore. Now he's going indie, and he paywalls.
Oh, he doesn't. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Now he's on a Substack. So if you go to 538, that's now something else. Polling guru Nate Silver and his election prediction model gave Donald Trump a 63.8% chance of winning the Electoral College in an update to his latest election forecast on Sunday, after a New York Times Siena College poll found the former president leading Vice President Kamala Harris by 1 percentage point. Harris has come out ahead in several national polls and swing state polls since taking over the top of the ticket. However, the results of the new New York Times Siena College poll, according to Silver, show that the results of the poll confirm this election model's view that there was a shift in momentum in the race. The New York Times Siena College poll also found more voters said Harris is too liberal or progressive on key policy issues than voters who said they considered Trump to be, quote, too conservative. According to his model, Harris has just a 36% chance of winning the Electoral College and overall leads Trump by 2.5 points in Silver's national polling average. A new New York Times Siena College poll this morning contained excellent news for Donald Trump. This is a quote, showing him 1 point ahead in a head-to-head matchup against Kamala Harris and 2 points up with minor candidates included. This is one of our highest-rated pollsters, so it has a fair amount of influence on the numbers, reducing Harris's lead in our national polling average to 2.5, which would put her in dangerous territory in the Electoral College, Silver wrote in the update at 11 a.m. on Sunday. Silver initially wrote on Wednesday that Trump's chances of winning the Electoral College have increased from 52.4 to 58.2 since the end of August. Harris's odds had decreased from 47.3 to 41.6 in that same time frame. Silver also noted that if Harris performed well in the debate, the New York Times poll might not matter. The good news for Harris is that there's debate on Tuesday, and if she turns in a strong performance, nobody is going to care so much about the Times poll. We'll have a longer narrative update on the state of the race coming later today, he wrote. Silver also said on Wednesday that Michigan and Pennsylvania, both key swing states, might prove to be a problem for her. In Pennsylvania, polling averages had Harris plus 1.8 pre-DNC, but it's now Harris plus 1. That's before any convention bounce adjustment, which is implemented at a later stage of the model. In Michigan, the polling average has fallen from Harris plus 3.1 to Harris plus 1.9. Silver pointed to multiple key portions of the New York Times poll in an additional post on Sunday, specifically the fact that 47% of voters see Harris as too liberal. Quote, but Harris also blew one big opportunity to tack to the center with her selection of Tim Walz rather than Josh Shapiro. That tiny minority of progressives objected to Shapiro was an argument in Shapiro's favor, if anything. There you go. That's what they think of you guys, Kyle and Crystal. I think Walz was a decent enough pick on his own merits, but given an opportunity to offer a tangible signal of the direction her presidency was headed, she reverted to 2019 mode. He's referring to when she ran on that sort of progressive, quote unquote, ticket of I'm for Medicare for all at the first. That was the most notable example of that. So, Nate Silver used to be a very credible guy, believe it or not. In 2012, he called the Romney versus Obama race exactly right, 50 out of 50 states. Every single state he called right. Not only that, he got the margins uncannily close to being right. I mean, he was pretty much spot on.
Well, that's what made his name
in that election, and that is what made his name. Then he started reading his own press, and now he is, fancies himself more as much a pundit as a data analyst, and that's where you get that bit of,
based on
editorializing.
That, he's not good at it. Yeah.
Right. The editorializing that, Shapiro would have been a better pick than Waltz. He's very much a water carrier for the establishment Democrats now. Not that there's much difference between establishment Democrats and progressives now, but he still toes that very, very inside centrist party
progressives
line. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a less meaningful difference now than it was in the past. But by 2020, even by 2016, he was basically a Hillary Clinton water carrier. And in this example, though, in the 2012 race, because he was so close, because he got everything pretty much spot on. I mean, that was pretty much 100% accurate, his take there. State by state, it was 100% accurate. He wrote a book called The Signal and the Noise, which is actually a very interesting book from a data analyst perspective. This was before he started giving his takes on things, right? It's back when he was just a math guy. And the premise of that book is that when you are looking to predict any kind of outcome that involves analyzing lots of data where there's lots of information, there's going to be a ton of information, most of which he categorizes as noise. That doesn't mean it's fake information. It means it's not relevant to predicting the outcome. And the challenge when you're going to make a prediction model is to find within that noise a signal, a through line. And what this new New York Times Siena poll seems to be telling him is that the signal of the race, probably the most relevant piece of data or piece of data to track throughout the poll is the anti-incumbency sentiment. The fact that voters overwhelmingly see this as a change election, and only 25% of voters see Kamala as a change from Joe Biden. Right. That could prove insurmountable because that macro dynamic could be enough to sway enough swing states to put Trump over the top. And don't forget, one of the things we've gone over in weeks past is that Trump has essentially expanded the map to the point where now I would say with Kamala instead of Biden, Virginia and Colorado, those are pretty safe Democrat states now. But there's not one state that Trump won in 2020 that he's really in any serious danger of losing. Maybe North Carolina, but very unlikely. By contrast, half of the swing states, if not all of the swing states, the Democrats won in 2020, they are in danger of losing. In fact, you could probably say every single one, with the possible exception of New Hampshire. But Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, those 6 states, Trump only needs 2 of them, really, depending on which ones. 2 or 3, depending on which ones. So there's more opportunities for it to break for Trump than there is for Kamala. That's why he has it figured a little over 60% chance. That's why you say Trump is the favorite. Is he the odds-on overwhelming favorite? I wouldn't say that because he still has to flip some states that are going to be tough for him to flip. You would think he has to win at least one of those blue wall states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, which at the end of the day, Republicans have only done.
Also mentions Michigan would be tough for Kamala.
It is. Well, that's the thing. Like, he only needs really one of those. He doesn't need all 3 of them. So maybe Kamala's likely to win all 3 of them, but if she's 2/3 likely to win all 3 of them, it means she's likely to lose one of them. In which case she's likely to lose. So that's where I think he gets at that. Now, obviously, he sees the debate tonight as a major opportunity to reset the narrative, which it is. I think, generally speaking, debates are pretty much pointless. I think they're pointless except for in cases where one candidate melts down, as what happened in June. or in cases where the race is as close as it is. And don't mistake the 63% chance of victory for Trump as Trump has 63% of voters in the polls. No. It's a 63% chance that Trump will eke it out by a narrow margin in enough states to win through the Electoral College. So it's very close. And when the race is this close, debates do matter. And so the stakes are pretty high for this evening, no doubt.
Right. And, Kamala's people, having seen how the first debate went and how having the mics muted benefited Trump because it forced discipline on him, they realized that was a mistake. And that was a big part of the contention over the last month about this, because they wanted the mics on, really. And, Greg Foreman, the black conservative, says this, and I think he's right. They wanted that I'm speaking now moment. That was why they wanted the mics on. They wanted Kamala to be able to pull a, excuse me, I'm speaking, and big viral moment. And now they're not going to get that.
Don't forget, she did that not just to the protesters this year, but she did that to Mike Pence 4 years ago. That was the big thing.
Right. She wanted to do that with Trump. Now she's not going to get to do that. The fact that the mics are off makes it much less likely that Trump melts down. However, Kamala, if you feed her lines, if she knows what's coming, if she's very prepared, she can momentarily cover over how essentially weird and creepy she is. So I'm not predicting a meltdown on her part. I would imagine they've prepped her for if Donald Trump starts talking about Willie Brown or something completely unpredictable, go to your talking points, don't engage, don't let him drag you into anything like that. It's Trump. He could go there. Just keep going. And you can see that even in the one interview that she granted the peasants, where they brought up the "Are you really black?" And she was like, "Well, he's going to do that." They definitely are telling her, "Don't engage on those things with him."
Yeah, for sure. Now, a few weeks ago, I'd have told you Trump is more liable to get too aggressive out of panic, that the momentum has reversed so much, but the momentum has really kind of stabilized now, which is something that Silver wrote about in his piece. And so he's less likely to make those mistakes. This could be a boring, wonky policy debate for all the hype. And if Trump executes that, if he executes that well, then a boring, wonky policy debate favors him, because the two top issues on voters' minds are inflation and immigration, and the Republicans are heavily favored on both of those issues.
Right.
So if this is a boring debate and he stays on script and pounds on those issues, then it will favor him. And the other thing that, you have to figure gives him a slight edge this evening is that, unlike 2020, where he was just chomping at the bit to go at Joe Biden and he overdid it and fucked up, he didn't give Joe Biden a chance to embarrass himself because he jumped down his throat every minute. He now has a proof of concept of what success looks like when he controls himself. Like he saw that when he held back against Biden, not only did Biden look bad, but he looked better, right? And that was just a couple of months ago. So now his team could point to, remember, Cartman, 2 months ago when you controlled yourself for an hour and a half, unlike every other day of your life? Yeah, exactly. That works. Do that. And there's a chance he does stick to that. So, yeah, like I said, we're going to be live at 9 o'clock. And the stakes are pretty high given the closeness of the race. But I think it could potentially be, as Russell said, a pretty tame affair. And a tame affair really favors who has a lead on the issues, and that there's no doubt Trump has a lead on the issues.
This is why I felt over the summer, during all those weeks ago when she was named the nominee, that her momentum was more apparent than real. Sure, people are just relieved to get Joe Biden out. It's a new flavor. Everyone's excited for a minute. She announces her VP. They have the convention. Of course, the media is completely in the tank for her, so the positive coverage is relentless. That was bound to peter out. And because Trump has such structural advantages on the issues, now things are shifting back towards reality. She's not the shiny new object. She was the most unpopular vice president in modern history a month ago. So what? All of a sudden, she's going to have this enormous base of support. It never really made any sense that that was gonna hold.
All right, we will take some Rumble rants and super chats here. Thank you everybody for being here. Got a nice crowd filing in. 928 on YouTube, 986 on Rumble. Smash that like button, everybody. JM, thank you for the $2 and the thumbs up. Appreciate that. Peter Monahan on YouTube. Thanks for the $50, Peter. It's very kind of you. Let's hit that cowbell for Peter. Good news, guys. I went in for a CAT scan yesterday. The results were extremely positive. It blew my surgeon away. Oh, well, that's wonderful. That is terrific news. I'm scheduled October 8th to go in and have the tumor removed. I will have 9 surgeons and will take 10 hours to replace my throat WML. I don't know what WML stands for, but that sounds like great news, Peter. I'm extremely happy to hear that. That's amazing. That's amazing. So do keep in touch with us. But yeah, that's fantastic.
And thank you so much for your support. That's such a difficult time for you, man.
Yes, of course. Of course. Thank you, Peter. And then keep in touch with us for sure. Ken Texican, thanks for the $10. Says Rumble seems broke today, which is unfortunate because YouTube is sensitive to the word slaughter on an industrial scale. Can't hang out today, but keep bringing the fire, DDs. Use are the best. Is Rumble doing all right? We seem to have a chat going in Rumble.
Yeah, it seems like it's working.
Let's get a proof of life in the Rumble chat. How's that, everybody? Yeah, seems like it's working okay. But thank you, Ken Texican. Yeah. Appreciate that. Mohammed Zagari, thanks for the $9.99 on YouTube. Thanks, guys. Free Palestine. Thank you. Appreciate that very much. And amen. Candace Strike, thanks for the $5. Almost thought Rumble skipped the notification, but then I saw I'm well within time. Let's go, DD. Today's going to be great. Yes, it's going to be a fun one today, Counter-Strike. Appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Ken Minji, I like this one. Did you guys check out Daryl Cooper's new 80-hour podcast? He makes a compelling point that Cosby is innocent and that his female accusers had a shared delusion orchestrated by Churchill. Is that right? How many books has he read about that? 20 books?
Probably $20, yeah.
All right. I mean, I'll start with the podcast, and then I'll read those 20
books from the local Stormfront outlet.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. Good one. All right, folks, we are going to move right along. On our last show, we covered a great deal, but we started the last show with the horrible story of the murder in the West Bank of peace activist Aishanur Ezgi. We had Shama Sawant on, who was a personal friend of hers, to talk about her and the work that they did together and the fact that she was shot by a sniper in the head by IDF forces at a protest in the West Bank. And now we're going to play a couple of videos of the State Department being asked about the United States' response to this. So this first line of questioning is from Simon Lewis of Reuters. So we'll play this.
A lot of people looking at this incident have pointed out the what seems to be a double standard or a different treatment of this death, death of an American citizen at the hands of Israeli forces to, other incidents where Americans have been killed in the conflicts in the Middle East or injured. Obviously there are different circumstances, but the president in relation to an attack by Iranian proxies earlier this year said, if you harm an American, we will respond. Does that apply in this case, or are we talking about a different standard?
Well, it's clear to anybody, Simon, that what the president was talking about in that context was a terrorist attack or a direct attack from a state or non-state actor that intentionally was conducted to put Americans or American citizens in harm's way.
You mean like an IDF soldier shooting an American peaceful protester in the head? Is that what you mean? That seems like a direct attack by a state actor against an innocent American, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Was the word Iran spoken out of that journalist's mouth? Is that it? Is that what, if an Iranian directly targets an American with violence, they'll be held to pay? When an IDF soldier puts a woman's head in the crosshairs of their sniper rifle and pulls the trigger, which is an unmistakable intentional kill. Law enforcement, and I would assume this is true of military as well, are told to shoot for the torso since that's the biggest target. A headshot is a kill shot, unquestionably, by a state actor against an innocent, unarmed American. Anything?
Yeah, well, it's the Israel exception. There is, and this is why they conduct themselves this way, because for their entire history, there have been no consequences for conducting themselves this way. Now, hey, look, folks, it's not all grim. We're going to be covering a divestment story later. It's on us. We have got to destroy the Israeli economy. That is really the most effective thing we can do. Protest, put strain on the system. 1 million people marched in London this week. That's great. And that's what's putting the impetus behind some big financial firms to start divesting from Israel. It is working. Their economy is devastated. That's the only way you're going to bring down the Israeli state, because the United States, England, most likely, they are not going to stop funneling support to Israel. You've got to devastate their economy to the point that they can no longer exist as a state. That is our mission, as I see it.
And of course, when it comes to the protection of our citizens and our personnel, and if they are targeted, we of course will take appropriate action. As it relates to the events on Friday, we are still gathering information as it relates to what transpired, what happened, and as tragic as it is, and it is tragic anytime anybody loses their life, any civilian loses their life. For people who work at this department, it is especially tragic when an American citizen loses their life. But we still don't know with full certainty what transpired and what happened, and that's why we are working to get as much information as we can, as well as encouraging our partners in Israel to quickly and robustly conduct and conclude their process and make their findings public, so we can understand what happened. And should whatever happened deem that there be appropriate accountability, the United States would certainly expect that as well.
Okay, we're going to go to the next journalist in a minute. But
it really is like Sagar lived on Ben and Jerry's for 3 months.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. We do know what happened. There are eyewitness accounts. I mean, if we can track them down for our YouTube show, you can't track them down. We played the Jonathan Pollock interview last time. He said exactly what happened. She was found bleeding from the head. This is not a mystery what happened. It's also not a mystery when it happened. He saw that there was a scuffle between the IDF and the protesters, but that scuffle calmed, and that this shot was fired in a moment of calm when there was no sort of theoretical perception of threats, shall we say. That's on video for anybody to see who wants it. So what, the State Department can't get any more information than two schmuck Jew podcasters here? No?
Yeah,
I mean, it's absurd.
That's...
And this has been the story every time something like this happens, not just in the specific case of like an American being killed, but anytime an atrocity has happened. This is probably our 10th segment that we've done like this in the past year, where reporters go and ask, do you have more information? Do you have any follow-through? Will any disciplinary action take place? And the answer is always the exact same thing. Always the exact same thing.
Well, because the only disciplinary action they could take would be an arms embargo and or cutting them off financially, and they're not willing to do it.
Right.
So at that point, what's there to even talk about? Literally, they are admitting every time they deflect to letting the Israelis investigate it, and we'll revisit at that time. They're admitting that there is literally nothing Israel could do that would bring on consequences from our side. Literally nothing. Literally nothing. The Israelis could go out tomorrow with a flamethrower and torch 100 protesters. They could go into a maternity ward and shoot all the babies. And I'm not being hyperbolic. Do you think the next day America would do anything about it? Like substantive? Yes, we're speaking to them about it. That is unacceptable.
Right.
They're doing their own investigation. That's what you would hear.
Well, that's what we hear next. So this is Ruben Iqbal Tehran. She's an independent journalist. I hope I didn't butcher that name too much. But she raises a couple of similar points. And so we'll let this play too.
All the information available indicate that she was killed by an Israeli sniper. Eyewitnesses say that she was killed by an Israeli sniper. Autopsy report say that she was shot in the head by an Israeli sniper. Your ally, NATO ally, Turkey, says that she was murdered by Israel. So what sort of information you are looking for? Do you have any doubt that she was killed by Israel?
I appreciate all that you're sharing, but there is a process that we have to respect and let play out here. Our partners in Israel have indicated that they are conducting a process and that they will make public their findings. Again, we expect that to happen as swiftly as possible, and we expect that process to be thorough. We expect that process to be transparent. Of course, eyewitness reporting and facts from those that were there are, of course, important, but there are, of course, other factors that go into such a finding, and I want to let that process play out. I understand how troubling this news continues to be. It's troubling for all of us as well, but it's also important that we not get ahead of the processes that are laid out.
But you were very quick to determine that Israeli-American Hersh Goldberg was killed by Hamas in Gaza. And have you ever sought for further information regarding his killing? And if, why haven't you shown the same quick response and reaction to the killing of Ayşenur?
So
now that is an excellent point.
Yeah.
We take that killing at face value. The person in question there, Goldberg Poland, was an American as well. So same situation, an American is killed. Except when an American is killed by a Hamas leader, we take that claim at face value, no investigation, no nothing. When an American is shot in the head in front of eyewitnesses who have since said on camera that that is exactly what happened at a moment of relative peace and calm, we say, well, we have to wait and see what happened. And the cherry on top, the biggest insult to them all, as Russ alluded to earlier, we're going to let Israel determine what happened. We're going to let the shooter investigate what happened. We're going to let the criminal party investigate itself. And we'll get back to you, not with our findings, but with their findings. Again, this is over and over again this happens. Whether it's a shooting of an American citizen or whether it's a bombing of a refugee camp, it's the same story. This sounds troubling. We will bring this up to our Israeli partners, and they will do an investigation, and we'll get back to you. Of all the segments we've done on this, have we ever done a follow-up segment where they actually do get back to us and tell us exactly what happened and what's being done about it? This is like our 10th segment we've done of this nature. I don't think we've done a single follow-up because there's been no follow-up ever to any one of these things.
Well, I mean, the pattern with Israel is if they do release a report, it'll be like 3 years when everyone's forgotten about it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Respectfully, Rabia, I understand that how tragic this loss of life was, and how deeply heartbreaking it is for so many people. But as I said to Simon, each circumstance is different, and let's be really clear and make sure that we are not conflating the direct murder of American and Israeli citizens, hostages, being held by a terrorist group, being murdered by members of Hamas. Each circumstance is unique. And
notice
different.
He doesn't finish that sentence. We're not going to conflate an American Israeli citizen being murdered by a terrorist group. You would think he would say we're not going to conflate that with an American being shot in the head by an IDF soldier, but he can't say that because then guess what? You are conflating because in both cases an American was murdered. An American was murdered. Right?
Well, and he catches it. That's why he redirects.
Finishing. Right. He
catches it. He realizes what he's about to say and stops.
That's the benefit of speaking at 7 words a minute is you can catch yourself when you realize you're about to bury yourself. And he changes the subject.
And anytime an American citizen or a civilian loses their life, it is incredibly tragic. But the circumstances around
back
how
to the
those,
talking
that
point.
happens
Go back
is
to the
important.
platitude.
The facts matter, and I'm just not going to get ahead of the process as it relates to this.
Ayşenur's family called for an independent investigation. Would you support this call?
So, look, what you just heard me say to Simon, we expect Israel to make their findings public. We expect those findings to be shared, transparently and as thoroughly and as soon as possible. Beyond that, I'm just not going to get ahead of what those findings determine, and should that those require any additional steps needing to be taken. Said, go ahead.
And no matter what the findings show, we have no intention of changing our policy regarding Israel in any way whatsoever. So it's really just a ritual.
The insult of this is just absolutely enraging. Absolutely enraging. That a 26-year-old woman shot in the head in front of eyewitnesses who say this is what happens, say that she posed no threat. The AP is reporting that it happened after tensions had subsided between protesters and the IDF. After that had happened, the AP it comes out and reports that this 26-year-old American woman is shot in the head. We have reporting that says it was essentially an execution, not the first time an American activist or journalist has been executed in the West Bank. Far from the first time. And the family of that American citizen who pays taxes to the American government asks her government for their own investigation into the murder of their daughter. And you will not commit to it. I mean, what could be more insulting than that? Put yourself in the shoes of that family. You should not feel at home in your own country right now. They have just told you they do not give a fuck about you, their own people. They will let this terrorist state murder your own American daughter, and they will not look into it. They will defer to the criminal to investigate themselves.
Right, and this is what you should think about when they tell you that they're very concerned about what's happening in Venezuela.
Right.
When they're very concerned about what's happening in North Korea. They're not concerned about the well-being of civilian populations. They're not even concerned with the well-being of American populations. They are concerned with the interests of the elite cabal that actually runs the Western world, not just in the United States, but cross-nationally. In the end, that is who they serve. And when they need to propagandize on behalf of that cabal, they start talking about atrocities. They start talking about the poor civilian population in these countries that they could give a shit about. It is never, whenever an American leader tells you, or a Western leader for that matter, tells you that they want to get involved in a foreign country because of the suffering of the people there, get your hand on your wallet. Unmute.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is just, like I said, the insult of that is just incredible. And it's transparent. And that's one of the things that has been made transparent over the past year. Really, I mean, this has been known for a long time, but I mean, you could say it as vis-a-vis the Ukraine war too. That,
right. We never care about the people.
No,
we never, that's never the motive.
Ukraine. Yeah, whatever. Right. Exactly.
That's never the reason. If that were the reason, we would have said, my God, Ukraine's got a relatively small population that needs to be preserved. We have to try to get to a peace negotiation, which could have been had a few months into the war. Right. They killed it.
Yep. Dr. Epstein, Nate Silver is a Trumper. Thanks, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that. Did you guys catch that yesterday? That was wild stuff, huh? What a wreck. That guy's a wreck. I hope that guy's all right. That guy seems.
Did he? I haven't seen it.
It was crazy.
There have been a lot of people have been talking about it.
Well,
people
the guy's talking about his work.
Talking.
Yeah, he's a researcher into Google. Like a investigator of sorts, And, Jimmy is talking. Jimmy starts adding to his point that, the establishment wants Kamala. You're talking about all these ways in which, big tech is sort of rigging the game in her favor. And he comes back with, I came here to talk about my work and you come back at me with a pro-Trump speech. It was bizarre. But yeah, I mean, he seemed like he's not doing well. I don't know if he's got some kind of, midlife crisis. I think he seems like an older guy, but yeah, that was wild stuff for sure. Tulsa Doom, what is steel compared to the hand that wields it? Look at the strength in your body, the desire in your heart. Rest in peace. Oh, we didn't do the
right.
Rest in peace, James Earl Jones, obviously.
Conan.
Yeah. Yep.
Can I step away for a second? I forgot to take out my fish to defrost.
Your fish? Oh, you got to defrost some fish? All right, go thaw your fish.
Give me a second.
Russell's going to go thaw his fish. While Russell does that, I am going to do, let's do an ad read while he's doing that. Commercial break, folks. Digestive issues is something affecting millions of people. This is caused by a potential toxin that's in all the, quote, healthy foods that scientists have been telling us to eat with a fraudulent food pyramid for the longest time. And this potential toxin causes digestive issues, according to Dr. Gundry, a world-renowned cardiologist. This is affecting millions of people nationwide. So warning signs include weight gain and fatigue and digestive discomfort and stiff joints, even skin problems. Dr. Gundry explains these side effects are often mistaken for normal signs of aging because digestive issues develop usually over a matter of years and even decades. I can assure you that the damage is probably caused by these health foods, quote unquote, and it's far from normal. The good news is you can easily help fix the problem from your own home. It's very simple. If you go find out yourself at gutcleanseprotocol.com/studio, that's gutcleanseprotocol.com/studio. Click on the link description below in the video. You can watch a video there and find out more about Dr. Gundry. That's gutcleanseprotocol.com/studio. Very important to take your probiotics, folks. Mike, the gut biome is a delicate thing. Mine is fucked up since I'm in college, and definitely makes a difference, 100%. I should have been taking probiotics since I had a very bad stomach infection, but now I take them every day, and I feel better. So take a look at that if you have a nervous Jew stomach like your host. All right. We need Porky Points starring Fat Sagar and Big Ball. Thank you, Eric Husso. Appreciate that very much, my friend. Let's go to the YouTube chats here. Barry91, excuse me, Russ, I'm speaking. I don't know who would be surprised by gay Nazis. It's pretty well documented. Those Hugo Boss uniforms were on fleek. Yes, thank you, Barry. Appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. I should have brought my coat. Maybe Thursday. Yeah. Maybe Thursday I'll put on the coat. And I have a monocle, too.
I was going to say we can auction that off as a patron tier. Peter Monahan, member for 6 months, gave us a member chat. WML equals wish me luck. Of course we'll wish you luck. And I'll send you an email, Peter. Maybe we could send Peter a little care package to pre-surgery. Nice. I think that'd be nice to do for you. So, yeah, I'll get in touch. Gray Ghost, thanks for the $10. Libs made a big deal about Project 2025 HQ being projected onto Trump's building in Chicago. I wonder how they'd feel if someone had projected the video of Aaron Bushnell onto the DNC's building. Good point, Grey Ghost. Thank you. Lawrence McNeil gave us £1.99, but they since deleted the message. So I don't know what you wrote, but thanks for the donation. Michael Castillo, let's get the cowbell out for Michael for $100.
Oh, snap.
That's very generous of you, my friend. Thank you very much. Aishanor Ezgi Aigi. Aishanor Ezgi Aigi. Free Palestine. Yes. Thank you very much for that generosity, Michael. I hope you had a chance to watch our segment with Shama. That was pretty powerful stuff. And that is clipped now on both the YouTube and the Rumble channels. Pete Sweet, thanks for the $10. Vegas odds have Harris winning debate 75%. Good bet she chokes tonight if you look at her history. Bet the farm. Replay Clinton Trump where undecided. Independent will vote with their feet and stay home. Well, here's the thing. Like, if all goes according to plan, if everything goes on script and there's no big moment or there's no big story where one side is in a panic after the debate, it's very likely the media will spin it as this was Kamala's moment to shine because she's going to look presidential, right? So I think that's where
she could drop a deuce in the middle of the debate. They're going to spin it that way.
Yeah, well, my point is if she doesn't do that, they will consider that a massive win because she'll look very presidential. She stepped into the big shoes, right? So I think that's probably where that formulation is coming from. I mean, who wins the debate is subjective. And so I think there's no doubt that like a boring debate probably goes to Trump on the population side and probably goes to Kamala on the media side. They're really going to be gassing her up if she just does a workmanlike job. That doesn't necessarily mean the voters are going to prefer what she says to what Trump says. We will have to see. We will have to see.
Look, with Trump, he's definitely a natural with the Borscht Belt comedian stuff.
Right.
She should be the one running. You know, like you never know what moment like that he's going to create.
Right. Exactly. Miserable Lib, thanks for the $5. My baby boomer Christian shit lib mom asked me, mom voice. All right, I'll see if I can guess what your mom sounds like. Kamala's not with those Palestinians, is she? You're from Texas, so that's not it. That would be like Brooklyn, mom. I don't know what a shit lib from Texas sounds like, assuming she's from Texas as well. And I replied, no, mom, she'll still let Israel blow babies' heads off. Wow. Yes. Okay, so that's another thing that we didn't get into in our sort of debate preview talk. Expect if there's two things you can expect from an issue standpoint, race to the bottom on immigration. They're going to really compete over who could beat up immigrants harder, and race to the bottom on the Israel-Gaza war.
Right.
Trump is going to accuse her of being soft on Israel, and she is not going to defend against that by saying, I affirm the humanity of the Palestinians. No, she's going to try to get, not necessarily to his right, but she is going to really try to affirm that she is pro-Israel. So it'll be a race to the bottom on those two issues.
I think that's a good prediction.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, let's see here. We got Robot Leg. Does Fat Soccer get paid by the Yeah, he does say a lot. Does sweat a lot.
You got to lie that much. You have to go slow.
Got to go slow. That's right. Folks, please.
Are we going to plug my tour at some point?
Oh, yeah. Do you have the link? I couldn't make the link up because it's so long, but we can plug it. Sure.
No, didn't Jake send it to us?
Did he?
I think he did.
Oh, I'll take a look here. Why don't you want to screen share the tour and I'll see if I can find the link. I didn't think he sent it to us.
Yeah, dudissidents.com/tour.
No, I sent that to him and asked if he could make it, but
he didn't make it. Oh, so let's just wait then.
All right, so we'll wait. But tickets are on sale for Russell's tour. So if you want to buy a ticket to a walking tour with Russell, go to eventbrite.com. Here, I'll screen share this and go to Weird New York Tour. Tabular. There you are. There's the link. So if you go to eventbrite.com and search Weird New York Russell Tabular, you will see it 2 days, Friday, October 25th and Saturday, October 26th at 7 p.m. And I'm assuming they get the meeting point once they sign up.
Yeah, it starts at Washington Arch. And this is my macabre, weird facts tour. So we go to the site of a very famous weather underground bombing from 1970. I will take you to a CIA safe house where they were doing MK Ultra experiments and lots of sites of murder and mayhem. I even go to a spot where, for those of you who know, you'll know, where G.G. Allen played a gig at NYU. That didn't end well.
Oh, wow. All righty. We will move on here. We got some more Rumble rants and super chats that we will take in a few minutes. Folks, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that follow button on Rumble. 1,400 strong in the YouTube chat. 1,300 strong in the Rumble chat. Pretty evenly dispersed crowd today, but a nice crowd for Tuesday afternoon. Okay. Folks, more horrible news out of Gaza. Israeli strike kills dozens in Gaza humanitarian area. Civil defense says the videos out of this were especially horrific. We have a couple videos to play. We're not allowed to show you the graphic stuff on YouTube, nor would we want to, but you will get a sense of the scale of this. Just another in a long list of unspeakable acts. An Israeli strike on Mawasi, a coastal tent encampment in southern Gaza that Israeli forces designated a humanitarian zone, killed at least 40 people and injured at least 60 on Tuesday, said a Gaza civil defense official. Sorry. Hold on one second. You...
All right. So I'm gonna do my interpretation of Frank Sinatra's version of "Fly Me to the Moon." The way I sing "Fly Me to the Moon," it's Sinatra's version.
All right, there you go. Sorry, like I said, a little bit of parenting.
I was just getting started. Fly me to the moon.
Yeah,
they were anticipating that. You need to put a lock on that door, brother.
Well, yeah, there's no way to do that, unfortunately. But yeah, logistically.
Oh, right. I've been to your house. That's right.
Logistically, the parenting is a bit tough today because one of the guys is sick. But anyway, I'll start this over. An Israeli strike on Mawasi, a coastal tent encampment in southern Gaza that Israeli forces designated a humanitarian zone, killed at least 40 people and injured at least 60 on Tuesday, said a Gaza civil defense official, Mohammed al-Mughar. The Israeli Defense Forces said it struck a Hamas command and control center hidden there. It said it targeted, quote, a number of senior Hamas figures who were embedded within the humanitarian zone, accusing them of being directly involved in the October 7th assault on Israel and planning to carry out further attacks on Israelis. The IDF said it could not yet confirm whether the targeted people were killed. In a statement, Hamas called the IDF's claims a blatant lie and accused Israel of trying to justify these heinous crimes. Asked for comment on the targeted people, Hamas reiterated its claims that its members do not use civilian areas for military purposes. Israeli warplanes hit the area with about 5 missiles in the middle of the night, leaving 3 large craters inside the camp and sending ambulances scrambling, said another Gaza civil defense spokesman, Mahmoud Basal. The strike took place near the British hospital, he added. Rescue workers are still trying to recover 15 missing people, Mughar said. Unverified photos of the strike's aftermath appear to show people digging in the sand with their hands for survivors. Mawasi, a remote coastal area between Khan Yunis and Rafah in southwestern Gaza, has for months been declared a humanitarian zone by the IDF amid evacuation orders and intense fighting. Overflowing in areas up to the shoreline with hundreds of tents sheltering displaced individuals and families, Mawasi is the last IDF-designated safe zone in Gaza, the last one, the last safe zone in Gaza, though aid groups say nowhere is safe and that they are unable to effectively work in the area. Rami al-Sharif, a father of 3 displaced from Gaza City, has been in Mawasi with his family since May. Quote, I was lying inside the tent trying to sleep, and suddenly there was a loud sound of bombing, and we didn't know what happened, he said Tuesday. There was the sound of 3 missiles. I went out with all the people in a panic after I checked on my 3 children and my wife, and they were fine. The 41-year-old said the targeted area was about half a kilometer away from the tent where he was staying. I saw a deep hole, he said. We don't know who the target was or who the person was in the place, he said. There is nothing that justifies killing people while they sleep, Sharif said. He said Israeli forces should wait to target wanted militants instead of putting people in harm's way, adding civilians should not be killed in this way. But, of course, many were. Here is an image of that crater. Here is some video of people digging in the hopes of finding others who are under the sand here. Just a nightmare. Just absolute hell on earth. I mean, look at the size of that crater. It's a little tough to see here because this is a night shot taken from the ground level, but we will get a sense of this in the next slide and the next video in just a moment. But here you could just survey some of that damage there. This gives you another perspective on the bombing here. They are not searching for survivors, but searching for possible remains of bodies after the Israeli attacks on the tents of displaced persons in Al-Mawasi neighborhood of Khan Yunis an alleged safe zone. So here you can see an aerial shot. You get a better sense of just the kind of weapons that were used here. I mean, that's look at that. Look at that. When you zoom out, look at the size of that. It's giant.
On a refugee camp.
On a refugee camp, the last safe zone in Gaza. All the others are not deemed safe anymore, or they're just not livable. There's nothing that can exist there. So this is the last one. And once again, I mean, the scale of that you can see best from that aerial shot. Look at that. Look at the size of that explosion. There's almost nothing else to say at this point, but I feel like when something happens, you have to cover it. How could you be anything but speechless at this point?
Well, no, I have something to say, especially in light of some recent back and forth we've had with some people. We have made the point almost all through this post-October 7th that the idea that Israel is protecting Jews is absolutely ass backwards. Israel is the greatest cause of anti-Semitism in the world today, because what you're seeing with a lot of people is very fringe white supremacist kind of ideas about the Jews having been behind all the world events, so that some people believe, well, really, the Nazis were the good guys in World War II, and it was the Jews. Look at what they're doing now. We're hearing a lot of that. Look at what they're doing now. So what makes you think they weren't doing that then? And of course, they're too, people saying this are too ignorant to know that Zionism at that time represented a fringe movement within Judaism that most Jews did not accept. The idea that nobody has asked, well, what were Zionists doing then? Literally behind me, 10 myths about Israel. If you want to know the history of the Zionist movement, going back to the 19th century, actually started by Christian Brits like Lord Palmerston, you can read this and it will explain that to you. People see this, and it has given a lot more credibility to crackpots who claim the Zog and the protocols of the elders of Zion, and see, well, look at what demonic, monstrous, genocidal behavior they commit now. So what makes you think they weren't behind World War II? Of course. Aha. See, they are helping to lend credibility to every crazy anti-Semitic trope that white supremacists were dismissed for promoting, because people are seeing things like this every day. Most of them don't know the history. Most of them are not going to take the time to look into the history, to read a book on the history. This is short. It's only 146 pages. I would highly recommend it. Please, if anyone is confused about that history and where it comes from, I implore you. There are credible historians out there who deal with that. Elon Pape is one of them. Norman Finkelstein is another, if you're looking for credible historians who are not conforming to the establishment narrative. But when you look at things like this, and it's really been eye-opening to see what some people believe. And you can see how much these events have given credibility to those anti-Semitic tropes. That is what Israel has done. This is where the Zionist project has brought us. It has brought us to a place where people are able to look at these Nazi theories about the Jews and say, well, given what I'm seeing on TikTok, that makes sense.
Are you there? Sorry, you froze a little bit. Your image was a little bit pixelated. It still is. But yeah, I mean, I would just say it's not so much as, I mean, yes, what you're saying is true. I would say it doesn't so much lend those ideas credibility as it helps to elevate people who say those ideas. Right. Because the emotional
and then
horror,
elevating it, you get people who didn't think that way hear it and say, oh, it makes sense.
Right, because the horror of what's going on is just so it's so inescapable, right? That creates a real, well out of which that sentiment to spring up. And that's why certain people who apparently have big audiences now who have not the first clue what they're actually talking about get propped up as these people who know the real history. The secret history. Like I said, Ilan Pape knows the real history. Norm Finkelstein. And so the dark side of that is exactly what you're talking about. And yes, it is mainstreamed by actions like this, 100%. There is no denying that. And then they'll come back and then they'll say, and this is how the cycle of violence goes on and on and on. Israel will come back and say, well, because these people are out here spreading Nazi propaganda, that means we have to be as barbaric as we're being.
Exactly.
And the cycle goes on.
Exactly. The idea that, and I think, most of our audience agreed with me on this, with some exceptions. If you see that having someone like Rachel Zegler saying Free Palestine can help to reinforce the idea that Zionists and the ADL would love to promote, that everyone who is on the side of the Palestinians is kind of a narcissistic wokester. What do you think it does to the cause to have somebody on that side who is a Nazi apologist? That's exactly what they want. They want people like that to point at.
Oh yeah, and we will get to that in due time. Don't you worry. All right, let's
believe that.
Yeah, believe that. Exactly. Okay. Brain Socks, thanks for the $2. A little support. Thank you, Brain Socks. Eric Rousseau, thanks for the $1. I don't mind kiddo interruptions. Make you an authentic working class news show. Thank you. Yeah, these past couple days have just been a little bit tough on the logistical side because one of my guys is sick, and so he's got to stay kind of far away from the baby, which means that Amanda can't get too close to them while I'm doing the show, really, because we're keeping them in separate rooms. But that means that they have more free reign. It's harder to control them while I'm doing the show because it's 3-on-1 while I'm doing the show now. And since they're sick, we're not bringing them to the in-laws either, since that's just rude to bring a sick kid into someone's home. Mr. Natural, thanks for the $10. Trump's prosecutions are all about political extortion and blackmail, and it worked against Clinton. Thus, we got NAFTA, repeal of Glass-Steagall Act, etc. Stopping is critical for protecting our interests. Thank you, Mr. Natural. Appreciate that. Richard, thanks for the $1.99. USS Liberty, 34 Americans. Thank you, Richard. Brock Sampson, thanks for the $5. I didn't get notified when you Jagoffs went live. I don't agree with everything you say, but you guys are pretty cool. Keep up the good work, ladies. Thank you, Brock Sampson. Appreciate that.
Thank you,
very much. Okay, why don't we keep on keeping on here? Okay, so this is some, I won't say light at the end of the tunnel, but a positive development. So, Russell, why don't you do this when you found this one?
All right, so yeah, we don't want it all to be a downer. This is where I see the rays of hope, and there is reason to believe that in the end, listen, Israeli Jews are not going to live in a third world country. It's not. You don't have to take it to the point that the country can't function economically. You just have to take it to the point that it's so uncomfortable to live in that most of them leave.
Yeah, just make the air conditioning expensive.
That's only like a modicum beyond what you would need to do. A major, they're leaving already. You already have the people that can leave or starting to leave. A major player in the French insurance industry has divested its holdings in 3 banks known to support the illegal occupation of the West Bank, delivering a major win to the global campaign to boycott Israeli institutions involved in human rights abuses against Palestinians. AXA, the multi-billion-dollar insurance company, had been a target of a years-long effort led by ECHO, an international ethical investing advocacy organization, pressuring it to unwind its holdings in the companies. In August, Echo published an analysis showing AXA had unwound its previous holdings in Bank Hapolim, Bank Leumi, and Israel Discount Bank. AXA has also not reinvested in previously held positions in Bank Mizrahi Tefahot or First International Bank of Israel, two additional targets of the campaign. This is how you do it. The banks were listed in a United Nations database of companies deemed complicit in maintaining the illegal occupation of the West Bank. Quote, foreign businesses that invest in these banks are complicit in Israeli war crimes, said Leili Kashani, a senior campaigner at Echo. Until September of last year, AXA held 2.5 million shares in the three designated banks, worth around 20.4 million. But by June of this year, the company had effectively zeroed out its holdings, Echo found. AXA's portfolio still includes a residual position of 16,290 shares of Bank Leumi stock. Profundo, an independent research organization which contributed to the report, attributed that holding to reporting and internal accounting delays and deemed the sell-offs a full divestment. While the company has not directly attributed its divestment to the activist campaign, at an AXA shareholder meeting in April, CEO Thomas Buberl appeared to distance himself from the company's past investments in Israel. Quote, AXA has no investments in Israeli banks. We have no shares in the banks targeted by the calls for boycott that certain activist groups are currently leading against several companies, he said. AXA did not respond to a request for comment from Dropsite News. The speed and scale of the drawdown, as well as the financial position of the assets sold off, suggested AXA's divestment was motivated based on ESG-related criteria rather than financial considerations, according to Profundo. Noam Perry, the strategic research coordinator at the American Friends Service Committee Action Center for Corporate Accountability. That's a ridiculous name for an organization, but okay. A participant in the campaign. Brevity is the soul of wit, saith the bard. Said that persuading a large company like AXA to divest is rare. Quote, this is not an institution that inherently has a commitment to make the world a better place. And he is now a candidate for Understatement of the Year award to be given out at Davos this winter. The successful campaign focused on AXA comes in the wake of a larger effort to push corporations to divest from companies complicit in the occupation, as well as human rights abuses in Gaza. Last year, it was revealed that Scotiabank, one of Canada's largest financial institutions, was the single largest foreign shareholder in Elbit Systems, the Israeli arms manufacturer whose weapons have been employed in the West Bank and Gaza. The company's $500 million position in Elbit, also targeted by a previous campaign led by Echo, was managed by the firm's asset management arm, and in particular, a subset of investment funds run by a single asset manager at the company. Following outcry over the report showing Scotiabank's massive stake in Elbit, the company was hit by protests and shareholder activist campaigns, pressuring it to divest from the Israeli arms manufacturer. The backlash seems to have had an effect. Earlier this year, Scotiabank halved its position in Elbit, according to regulatory filings. The economic impact of the accelerating boycott campaign targeting Israel is difficult to quantify in isolation, but it is one factor that has contributed to a significant economic downturn in Israel over the past year. Now, here's the really good news. In the last quarter of 2023, and this is right at the beginning of the war, the Israeli economy contracted roughly 20% in annualized terms, as the government dealt with the economic strain of hundreds of thousands of reservists leaving the workforce, as well as many Israelis evacuating the north of the country near Lebanon. In August, credit ratings agency Fitch downgraded Israel's sovereign credit rating to an A, while maintaining a negative outlook that signaled the possibility of further downgrade should the war continue. Israel is now on pace for the worst performance of any country in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So if you wonder what the result of all this is, there you go, man. Stay strong. ECHO is now targeting major global financial organizations like BNP Paribas, Deutsche Bank, Credit Agricole, and Barclays with similar boycott measures over their lending to Israeli arms suppliers. It has also trained its focus on finance giant group Citigroup. They are, okay, you want to talk about a shadowy cabal that's always behind the scenes of all the world's atrocities? Look to Citigroup.
Yeah.
Citigroup
exactly.
is always there, which recently helped finance the purchase of F-35 jets by the Israeli military. Yeah, actually, that reminds me, I have a Citibank issued credit card. I should cancel that. I've had that for years. But yes, hey, this is actually, this is actually having an effect. That is the way. That is how I've always felt. The way that you're going to really end not just this conflict, but the future of Israel. All wars are bankers' wars, right? You have to destroy their banks. You have to destroy their insurance companies. You have to destroy their businesses. You have to destroy their tech sectors. You have to make Israel so economically depressed that nobody wants to live there anymore and they're not able to have a sustainable society there. That is the way to win this war.
Yeah, and unlike a lot of causes that the left rallies behind, this one has majority support, right? Most people are against what is going on right now, and so it's as simple as telling people, hey, when you're in the hummus aisle, go store brand, not Sabra, right? If you're out and about and you need
Tribe.
Right, exactly. Tribe.
Cedars.
Cedars is actually very good. We should do ad reads for we should do ad reads for non-Israeli hummus. Actually, that would be good. We could sell the shit out of that.
That would be on brand.
They'd move some product. They would do very well. Could eat it on the show and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's the easiest thing to do if you're out and about and you want a coffee. No Starbucks. Go to an independent coffee shop. Shit, even go to Wendy's. Right. I think Wendy's is cool, right? I know McDonald's is not, but I haven't heard anything about Wendy's.
McDonald's is not.
Right.
You shouldn't eat that shit anyway.
No, I'm saying if you need a coffee and you need
I know.
Thing,
yeah.
Not every place like New York where you can get cool, independently brewed, local coffee. Not a lot of towns, it's not every town has like that cool coffee shop that you can go to, which you should if you can. Sometimes if you need chain coffee, go to a gas station, whatever. Citgo. Get some Venezuelan coffee. There you go.
McDonald's stock is getting killed.
Yeah, they're hurting.
Starbucks stock is getting killed.
Yep.
So keep it up. Keep it up. We reached out a while ago. We should try again. We reached out to BDS to try to get somebody on.
Right. I mean, now they make it easy with the apps and everything, and now you notice like one of the ways that like the PR war is being won, and I would say slowly but surely, but really not very slowly, is the fact that you're like allowed to talk about that. Like that was such a third rail. BDS, you couldn't even say that. Well, what do you mean?
Right.
There were laws against that in certain states here, but now that is just like that is mainstreamed enough, which is a reflection of changing attitudes. And this is an example of how it works on that sort of next rung of the economic ladder when you talk about insurance companies and investment firms and things like that. But it works on the retail level too. It works very well on the retail level too, to the point where it can absolutely make a big impact. And so that is encouraging. Judy Denmark, thanks for the $10. You guys are too much. Intelligent, insightful, well-researched show that is only made more authentic by a little kid interrupting your segment, although you could consider drugging him. Thank you. Yeah.
Little cough syrup for those kids.
Yeah, exactly. Those were the days, right? You used to be able to do that without anybody giving you a problem, right? Let's see. Let's put our supporters up on the screen here, folks. If you like what we do, you can become a patron by going to /do dissidents and help us create more of your favorite online content here. So you can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents. You can go to dodissidents.substack.com, or you can join our locals. That's dodissidents.locals.com. If you're watching on Rumble, the best way to join the locals is to click that bright red join button underneath the video player. That takes you to our locals page. For $5 a month, you get your name up in lights on the scroll screen. You also get call-in access to our weekly post-show Q&As exclusively on Rumble, and you also get 2 bonus live streams per month, which are exclusive for paid members. Interactive live streams where we do an hour of content just like we do on the show, and then we take about an hour of your phone calls. So we try to make the perks as worthwhile as possible. Special events get live streamed here. We're going to live stream our Theater and Arts Festival next spring. We're going to live stream Russell's walking tour exclusively to patrons next month. We're starting a patron film club where we will do interactive movie nights. That'll start this month as well. And so we really pad the perks there for just $5 a month, and it helps us tremendously censor-proof our operation and keep the operation going. For those who are filing in late, a reminder, this is part 1 of a day-night doubleheader. We are on at 8:45 p.m. tonight for live reaction and commentary on the Kamala versus Trump debate. So be sure to tune in for that. That's going to be a weird, wild time.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Tropical Rocket, thanks for the $10. Tough to know real history or shamelessly lied to constantly. Thank you, Tropical Rocket. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Let's go here. We'll knock that out. Back to my home screen here. All right. Beautiful. Okay. All right, folks. Let's move right along here to segment number 5 on the day. All right, folks. Hey, anybody see this last night?
You know it's getting serious when I get cross-legged.
When Russell gets cross-legged. Yeah. Here's Dave Smith on the Piers Morgan Show with Seth Dillon from the Babylon Bee talking about that interview, which we talked a little bit about, Daryl Cooper on the Tucker Carlson show. We did about an hour and 10-minute long segment on this on the last show, which you guys may have seen, may have had a chance to watch that. We've gotten some feedback on that. And we figure, let's go right back. So
there's our beat now.
Yeah, exactly. Killing Nazis like Inglourious Bastards, right? So here we are. Dave Smith, apparently, from what some people have told me online, champions Daryl Cooper, put him in touch with Tucker. That's how that interview was arranged. I don't know that for a fact. Very smart people are saying that. Very smart people have been saying that. And so given how the interview went, Piers Morgan is going to ask Dave Smith about the claim that Winston Churchill was the chief villain of World War II. So let's take a look at this.
My question for you would be, how would you have tackled Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, given their ideology, given their military might, given their intent was declared very clearly with the invasion of Poland? What would you have done?
I'd have said, knock it off. In a real aggressive voice, I'd say, you knock it off,
exactly.
you Nazis.
But this is the reality. The world was facing a genuinely existential threat.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no question about that. No, look, there's
some question about that in the mind of Daryl Cooper, who laments Churchill's decision not to broker a deal with Adolf Hitler. I mean, there was some doubt in his mind. Maybe not in yours, but in his.
His view is very clearly what makes Churchill the villain of World War II, is that once the British had evacuated at Dunkirk, he shouldn't have continued to maintain an aggressive posture towards Hitler. That was being a sore loser or something. And he should have agreed to what Hitler was trying to do, which was, hey, we're white. We're white. You're white. Let's divide the world between us. Hey, come on. What do we fight? What's all this about? What's all this fighting about? Paisan, come on. We're just going to go fuck with some Russians. You don't like them anyway.
Well, I mean, that was Mussolini, the Paisan. Yeah, you got him a little bit confused there, but same idea.
Well, no. Mussolini made the contact, and he said it exactly that way.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. Here's what you tell him. You tell him, "Hey, paisan."
Hey, paisan. I went right to. Didn't we show that on the show? I went to the famous Mussolini balcony, and I did the pose right there when I was in Rome.
That's right. That's right.
Before, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but I kind of mean it too. My real dog in this fight is to blame Woodrow Wilson. I think that the mistake was getting involved in World War I. I think that World War I was looking like it was headed toward a stalemate. America got involved and then forced the unconditional surrender of the Germans, imposed the Treaty of Versailles. I think that's kind of what set the table for World War II ultimately to happen. Look, what happened in World War II happened. I don't know how things would be different if things had, I
said some people did some things.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. Look, so I just want to pause it there because look, the idea that the world beat up too hard on Germany between the world wars is fairly mainstream. I mean, there's nobody's really going to give you
in the
much
segment
argument about that.
In the segment we did, I literally read a take on Germany that was written by Winston Churchill in 1935.
Yeah.
That blamed the Treaty of Versailles and the reparations for the rise of the Nazis. In 1935, he was writing that.
Yeah. It's not a particularly edgy, and I'm not saying Dave Smith thinks this way, but I'm saying it's in keeping with a lot of what Daryl Cooper says. That's not
that's
straight
foundational.
Up Hitler apologia is pretty much foundational, right? Nothing too new. But all right, let's keep going.
Listen, all I'm saying is that the logic of saying that if you're critical of Winston Churchill, or if you're critical of FDR, or if you're critical of Joseph Stalin, I suppose, also would be but I'm just saying the logic that means you're downplaying Hitler. It just simply does not follow.
Well, actually, I don't agree with you, because if you actually say as a statement of fact that the chief villain of the Second World War is Winston Churchill, and you don't say it was Hitler, then I'm afraid what you are doing, as Seth said earlier, what you are doing, Dave, you are downplaying just how evil Hitler was, because you're saying that this other guy who defended us against him was worse.
Right? Let me get a word in here, because there's also the issue of what's not being said. Because
before he goes into what's not being said, I just want to pause it there. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Semantically, if you're going to call Winston Churchill the chief villain, that is in and of itself reasonably interpreted as at least a partial exoneration of Adolf Hitler, right?
Well, of course, and that's really the argument. And some people want to pretend, even though we spent quite a bit of time in our segment talking about the sins of Winston Churchill, that that's what's being litigated. And again, if you didn't know this about Winston Churchill, all I can tell you is welcome to the club. Welcome to the party. This is well known from anyone who doesn't get their information from some guy who works for the Defense Department, who just decided to do 30 hours on shit because he feels that he's qualified. If you've actually looked into these things on your own, aside from that, this I mean, again, this is very conventional stuff. It's not like he came out and said this about Winston Churchill in 1949. Might have, and actually, in a lot of parts of England, like say among the coal miners of Wales, it would not have been a revelation even then that Winston Churchill was basically a fascist himself. None of that has anything to do with, or in any way justifies, claiming that his biggest problem, which again, as you point out, Keaton, in that whole segment with Tucker, he didn't mention any of those criticisms of Winston Churchill. The real criticism was that he didn't take the L after Dunkirk. That was his criticism.
Yeah, and I just want to address what Dave said there too, because there's nothing wrong with Dave's point there that to criticize Churchill is not necessarily to exonerate Hitler. Like, logically, that holds. And there are a lot of people who try to present this as a straw man. Well, all Cooper does is talk about what a villain Churchill is And they are claiming that we are illogically deriving from that he's defending Hitler. No, Dave, I'm sorry. Like, the principle of what you're saying here is true, but the facts are not on your side vis-a-vis this Tucker Carlson interview. In the Tucker interview, he not only vilifies Churchill, he specifically frames the deaths in the POW camps as accidental and as a result of poor logistics and planning. He does that. Now, some people in the comments said, you confused the concentration camps with the prisoner of war camps. To that I say, it really is a distinction without a difference in this context. Oh, you can't say that. Of course I can say that. The Nazi plan for the East, which predates World War II by many years. Which they wrote down and spoke about
Master
on record
Plan Ost. Look it up. It's translated. You can read it for yourself.
Before that, Hitler wrote, what is it, the Gemlick letter, 1919, talking about how eventually, yes, we are going to have to rid Europe of all of the Jews. The Nazi plan for the East was, indeed, occupation and genocide. That is as basic and well-documented a historical fact as exists in the 20th century. And Darryl Cooper said, no, they killed those people by accident. So you want to make a distinction between the concentration camps and the prisoner of war camps. The plan for all of them was the same. It was elimination. This is, like I said, as basic a historical fact as exists in the 20th century. This is the historical equivalent of 2 + 2 = 4. That is how basic this is. So it is not simply that we are illogically determining that because he's tough on Churchill, he's soft on Hitler. No, he was explicitly in that interview, both in words, tough on Churchill and soft on Hitler. He was soft on Hitler explicitly. We're not interpreting it that way. That is what he said. And none of the people who came at us, whether in the YouTube chat, in the comments, or on X, nobody has denied that he put it that way. Nobody. And Dave can't either when he's challenged later here. And, I like Dave Smith, but this is a little embarrassing. You vouch for this guy, and you really should not have.
Yes, and that's what's going on here. He stuck his neck out. This guy revealed himself as a Nazi sympathizer.
Yeah. And
as we'll discuss, particularly on Thursday, when we get into the rest of that interview by popular demand, listen, you can be a Nazi sympathizer without necessarily being a white supremacist. Yeah, he speaks very sympathetically about the black people who were victims of Jim Jones, and he's spreading around that half hour of him reading the accounts of Holocaust survivors. But you can still have a sympathy for fascism and authoritarianism and ethno-states, which he clearly does. Because if you do listen to the rest of that interview, basically he and Tucker spent a lot of time making an argument for ethno-states. And what he says about, even within the segment, what he says about Germany is really they were defenders of the West against the Bolsheviks, which was exactly how the Nazis saw themselves. He seems to believe in the right of people to have culturally contiguous, racially homogenous states and to defend themselves against predation against that. Now, this is not unique among people with fascist inclinations in the modern world, particularly Americans. We talk about socialism with American features. I think the smarter fascists recognize that in a polyglot society like America, you can't, a white nationalist based fascism is not going to get very far. There are just too many non-white people here. So you have to go with a more pluralistic kind of a nationalist fascism. But the reason he has this sympathy for the Nazis is because he essentially thinks they went too far, but they had the right idea. That's what you really get out of hearing him speak more at length on his views about other countries and immigration and other societies. He thinks the basic idea of the Germans holding back the tide of the Bolsheviks and the Russians, that was a noble cause, and even wanting to have Germany for the Germans, that was their right. They just shouldn't have put the Jews in camps, and they should have planned better for the invasion of Russia. That's basically where he's. Now that is what I think most reasonable people would define as being a Nazi sympathizer.
Yes.
What else do you call that?
All right, let's take a look at some more.
You can suggest, well, did he actually say anything that was sympathetic to Hitler? Well, some of it was what he didn't say. In that conversation, there was no mention of the Holocaust. There was no mention of Hitler's genocidal intentions in a conversation that was meant to determine who the chief villain of World War II was. No mention of those things. How's that justifiable?
Well, I mean, Seth, I just want everybody who's watching this to just appreciate for a moment that I'm sitting here and saying, hey, listen, this guy spent a half hour of this long podcast series that he did covering the Holocaust. He just put out around a half hour kind of statement about all the controversy of the last 2 weeks. Everybody on the show here has not listened to it. And then Seth goes, yeah, I'm not going to listen to all of that, but I will find these obscure tweets.
Well, why is it incumbent upon people to seek out more material from a guy who, during his 15 minutes of fame on the Tucker Carlson show, spoke for over 2 hours, much of it was about World War II, did not mention the Holocaust one time, and denied the very thoroughly documented genocidal intent of the Nazis. So what are you talking about? Why does anybody owe this guy more time? Why do we owe I have to listen to his half-hour statement? I think Dave got mixed up there, too, because this guy he published a 20-minute portion of his original, 30-hour podcast about the Holocaust. Now, it wasn't so much about the Holocaust. I did suffer through that this morning. He reads firsthand accounts of Holocaust victims, and there is no reason for anyone to listen to that unless they are being accused of Hitler apologia.
Right.
Like, that is of no value to anyone who's not in damage control mode. But he drops that portion of his podcast to see, look, I read firsthand accounts of people who suffered in the Holocaust. That means I'm not a Holocaust denier. So I tweeted this out. I said people aren't being accused of Hitler apologia don't have to share around 28 minutes of a Hitler apologist reading primary sources from Holocaust victims. This is only of value to people in damage control mode after showing their ass as Hitler-loving morons, referring more to the people who kept insisting that we didn't have this guy's number because we didn't listen to this 28-minute piece of audio. Absurd. There's no reason to listen to it. Yes, I know people died at the Holocaust. The fact that he knows that too does not absolve him of the statement he made, which denied the genocidal intent of the Nazis. I'm not saying this guy says no one died at the camps. This guy says that their operation of genocide was basically an accident. It was basically a failure of logistics. And the fact that he acknowledges that people died and puts out a 28-minute clip of him reading the accounts of people who died. The only reason this would be in here at all is because you have a guilty conscience and you know you're going to be accused of Holocaust denialism / minimizing. But I wish I could show you the graphic of this podcast image. But as you could see, I'm unable to view this post because this account owner limits who can view their posts. And that's right. This rigorous intellectual who we're supposed to study up on and learn all about and perhaps even contact to come on and debate us, blocked us. For that. He blocked us for that tweet. I guess that's not going to happen. I guess that's not going to happen. Nazis in retreats once again.
Yeah, and what's really funny is some of the basement dwelling incel freaks who have been going on and on about this guy. well, you can't blame him because look what you said about him. But if a leftist did that, if somebody on the left did that, if somebody you don't like did that, snowflake,
triggered.
So, come on, man. You're going out there and you're taking these positions. You can't defend them. You can't defend them from a couple of podcast and schmucks. You can't defend them from a tour guide and a delivery driver.
Right.
You got to block them.
You got to block
them.
Yeah.
It's not like we start going after his family. We went after his ideas. Went after his ideas, and he blocked us. I thought that makes him a snowflake, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Isn't that a little Mary, little bitch? That little bitch who acts like that? You got triggered like that? Blocked us? Yeah.
That's that. All right, we got more of this video.
Okay, go ahead.
All I'm saying is that if you want to listen to this guy talking about the horrors of the Holocaust, he is out there on record. Listen to it and tell me if this sounds like a guy who's downplaying the Holocaust.
Dave.
I did listen to it. It does sound like a guy who's downplaying the Holocaust. Spending 28 minutes reading accounts of Holocaust victims does not absolve you of downplaying the Holocaust. The only reason that's in there at all is because he knew fucking damn well he was downplaying the Holocaust. And I better put this in here to cover my ass so that I have a clip to share around when I get my 15 minutes of fame and I'm exposed as basically a Hitler defender, which is what this guy absolutely is. There's no question about it. Why else in a 2-hour podcast would you? Well, here, you know what? I'll leave it to you. They make this point for me. I'll save myself the
play it. Yeah. And I got a few things to say about Dave here.
All right.
Dave, hang on. How long was this interview with Tucker Carlson? It was like 2 hours or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So in 2 hours, you don't get into the Holocaust as you're trying to depict
Not even a
Winston
mention.
Churchill.
Not even a mention.
As you're trying to depict Winston Churchill as the real villain of the war. I mean, come on.
I think that's a reasonable. That's a reasonable critique, and I wish Tucker had asked him a little bit more of that, and I wish he had gotten into some of the stuff he got on this other 30-minute explanation.
I think his
of it that I was
tweets are a
talking
reasonable
about.
critique too. Do you agree with his tweets that are sympathetic to Hitler and calling himself a fascist?
I would. I wouldn't agree with those tweets. I didn't post them. I also don't really believe, like, if you could imagine, so like as somebody who has consumed hours and hours and hours of his content, I'm not like hanging him over one tweet that he sent that I think was like, being very hyperbolic and I don't think was really landed. But
okay, but the problem, Dave, is that when people read tweets that are unambiguous in their defense of Adolf Hitler, saying that the Nazi invasion of France was better than the woke Olympics, people are not then inclined to listen to a 30-hour podcast from this guy. Maybe if he's your friend, you're willing to give him that latitude, but the average person will not, nor should they be expected to. Again, it sucks because I do like Dave Smith. I like a lot of what he has to say on a lot of topics, and I don't think he's a bad guy. But this is embarrassing, man. It's embarrassing. How embarrassing. You have to come out here and say, maybe in a 2-hour and 18-minute podcast that's largely about World War II, maybe he should have mentioned the Holocaust once. Maybe he shouldn't have tweeted out praise of Adolf Hitler. Yeah, I'll give you those points. But, if you listen to his entire body of work, he's really more than that. Well, we don't owe that to him any more than anybody owed the Beatles any more than the Ed Sullivan Show. The Beatles went on Ed Sullivan and killed it, and they became a sensation. If the Beatles went on Ed Sullivan and their guitars were out of tune and they couldn't sing and they fucked up the lyrics, people would have forgotten about them. They wouldn't get to go to the public passing around CDs. No, listen to this. This is a 2-hour demo. It's really good, and we're playing at the Roseland Ballroom next week. No. You had your chance to impress me. You blew it. That's what this guy did. His larger body of work, I am not interested, nor should I be. Yep, we do not owe it to him to be interested in 30 fucking hours of God knows what else is in there.
Yeah, there are plenty of credible historians out there who are not establishment historians who do get into these narratives, which again, a lot of this stuff that's being presented as edgy because you have to be pretty fundamentally ignorant to not realize that where this guy is actually factually correct. It's common knowledge by anyone who has even a passing interest in the subject. Oh, really? American bankers and American corporations were involved with the Nazis? Really? Prescott Bush Yeah, call the New York Times. Nobody ever heard about this.
Right.
None of this shit is new. None of it is revelatory. At this point, you can't even say it's a challenge to the established narrative, because those things have become part of the established narrative a long time ago, not like 10 minutes ago. Like people know about this for the most part, particularly if you've at all looked into this. In terms of Dave Smith, what's really grotesque about that display is, okay, so you elevated a Nazi sympathizer and now you're trying to save your ass and save face, and you're trying to split the difference and defend this guy. When you take a pro-Palestine position as a Jew, the Zionists call you self-hating Jew. They call you a traitor to Jews. They'll call you a
Holocaust Jew.
Not yeah, but what is the word they use? It's from the camps. You had the Jews who worked with them.
Yeah,
there's a word for it, capo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll call you a capo, like you're like the Jews in the camps that worked with the Nazis. So when a Jew elevates a Nazi sympathizer and then doubles down by going on Piers Morgan to defend them, you're really helping the ADL to make the case that Jews who are pro-Palestine are self-hating Nazi sympathizers. What Dave Smith did there, that is what black people in the black community might call a step and fetch routine from the old minstrel shows. You're going on there as a Jew, and you are doing a routine to please Nazi sympathizers. And I think we had some people in our audience who mistook our show for one where we're going to entertain anti-Semites by bashing Israel. And you put it very well. You can say it. What is our exception to Israel as opposed to theirs?
Well, I would say we are anti-Zionist because we are anti-fascist. The Zionists are fascists, just like the Nazis were fascists. That's why Zionists are comparable to Nazis, because they're both fascists. And so we are not anti-Zionist because we're anti-Jewish. We're anti-Zionist because we're anti-fascist. To the extent that this martyr-made guy is anti-Zionist, it's because he's anti-Jewish. He's not anti-fascist. The guy is an overt fascist, an unmistakable fascist, as we will get into more on Thursday, because Russell, on the recommendation of some of you guys, actually did listen to the rest of the interview. How many hours of this asshole do you expect people to subject themselves to? How many hours of time do you think people have to listen to this guy? Because the answer, like if you did a word cloud of like responses to our takes on this, more than anything, it's you haven't listened to enough of him. Okay, so what's the number? What, 30 hours, 40 hours, 50 hours? How many hours do we owe this guy, who blocked us in an instant, by the way, as soon as he found out who we were? And he might know who we are because he blocked my personal account too, which most people don't even know exists. So maybe he actually knows who we are.
I haven't even checked if he blocked my personal account.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
If he found yours, he has to have found mine.
Yeah.
All right, so this is such a thin-skinned little bitch that he actually ran down our personal accounts to make sure those are blocked too. And this is the person we're supposed to run to get our history from. And let me just say on one more point. Look, from the beginning of this show, we kind of identified as kind of being an anti-woke left. Obviously, I'm more the culture warrior than Keaton is, but we tend to agree on those things. And from the beginning, we knew we were a little different than most of what was out there at that time. And there was definitely a question like, hey, is there really an audience for that? This was at the height of the activists really controlling the narrative. It's at the height of Me Too. You really couldn't question the gender narrative at this time. It was really certainly nobody from the left was challenging any of that. And my theory, I said, you know what, man, there are more of us than there are of those people, man. I'm sure there are. I am sure there is an audience for sensible leftists who don't buy into this shit. And you know what? We were right. And we developed a good, solid audience that we like to hang out with that is on the same page. but we took a lot of chances from the beginning. People who who said here and there, things like, well, I hope you see how this went in the comment section. Go fuck yourself, motherfucker. We have never decided to do a segment or not to do a segment to cater to people that we don't even like. We do not need you in our fucking audience. And you know what? You think you represent a lot of people? Our fucking subs took fucking 20, 30 dip, start going right back up.
We lost 25 and we gained 25 right back. Just like in World War II, the Nazis made some advances, but the commies rose up. The commies prevailed in the end.
Yeah, so we have found that you lose people you don't want with a segment like that, and you gain people you do want. We actually call it our great replacement theory.
Exactly. That's absolutely right.
Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. I heard Stormfront has a podcast now. You can go over there.
Well, there's one other thing I want to make. One other point I want to make about this guy, because apparently he's good on Israel-Palestine. Apparently, like I said,
he said at one point in the rest of the interview, this is very interesting, and it makes sense. We always say, the Israeli state, it's the ultimate kind of racially homogenous state, right? I mean, it's literally an ethno state. It's hard to find a self-defined ethno state in the modern world. So he says at one point when he's talking about his admiration for homogeneous societies, yeah, the Jews realized they needed a place of their own to go work things out. So I don't know how pro-Palestine he is. I would imagine, at least based on the coverage we did, his take is probably, you had a right to take this land, but you needed to provide better for the people you're oppressing.
Okay, well,
that was his logic with the Russians.
I mean, that's really beyond the point I was going to make, because I neither know nor care whether this guy is pro-Palestine, because if this guy is pro-Palestine, as he might be, this is, first of all, the guy is literally a Fed. I mean, this is a thing in this space, right? We call people who are suspect a Fed. This guy's literally a Fed. This guy literally works for the Defense Department. And he goes on Tucker Carlson's show, and apparently this anti-Zionist is also soft on Hitler. Now, if the establishment wanted to elevate one anti-Zionist voice, who do you think they would pick? A literal Fed who frames the issue exactly the way the ADL would want any anti-Zionist to frame the issue. I mean, this guy is such. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. You're worried about Rachel Zegler giving us a bad name?
Yeah, talk about hold my beer. Right?
Yeah.
Rachel Zegler's a liability to the pro-Palestine cause. Enter this fucking asshole, right?
Yes.
Now, I don't even know. Like I said, that's a hypothetical. I don't know what his views are. I don't care. I don't have to care. I don't have to concern myself with the body of work of everyone in this new edgelord ecosystem who thinks that if they just take a contrarian position, the more extreme it is, the more brilliant I will be perceived to be by a certain cohort of online people who are just addicted to dismantling the narrative. No. There's a difference. But the fact that the Nazis intended to genocide Eastern Europe is not the narrative. That is perhaps the most well-documented historical fact of the 20th century. And to deny that, as he does, is to discredit yourself. I do not have to look any further into his body of work. If you have time for that, and that's your thing, peace be with you. Go forth and do it. I don't have time for that. My kids come into the studio half the shows now. Okay? Like, I have my hands full. I don't have time for this.
Got a growing family.
I don't have time for this, man. And no one should either. And on a serious note, Dave Smith, you're a lot better than this guy. You're a lot better than this guy. You do not need to debase yourself like this.
All right. So people asked a lot, well, what books? And actually, I mean, some people in sincerity, most of them not in sincerity. So I am going to recommend some books to you on these various subjects that are a lot more credible than a Fed with a podcast. If you want to read something about the war on the Eastern Front, probably the most extensive and in-depth books on that ever to be printed in the popular, not academic press would be these two: Anthony Beaver, Stalingrad, and then the really it's the sequel, The Battle for Berlin. It literally just picks right up where Stalingrad leaves off. Now, some people will say, well, what about the atrocities of Stalin and the communist regime? If you know the show, I've never been shy about talking about that. That's what's been funny. We have this kind of back and forth with the communists, who are our friends. You know, we're friends with them, but we have some disagreements about this. Some of them don't like this account, and in my opinion, it's because they tend not to like any account of the Soviet Union that is in any way critical, because in the end, this is not a Russia bashing account. I came away from it with great admiration for the fortitude and the toughness of the Russian people, because he really gets into detail on the kind of suffering they went through in Stalingrad and the fact that they turned it around. Now, a lot of tankies, Stalin apologists will, make one point that is true. He industrialized that country almost overnight in order to win this war. Hitler himself said he couldn't believe they were able to manufacture as many tanks a day as they were manufacturing, from this being a kind of peasant rural society. But like I said, this is very, very interesting. And one point I will make is because Cooper seems to really, really, really have a lot of compassion for the German people. And he seems to feel they were pushed into what they did by the villain of World War II, Winston Churchill. But he does not accord any of that empathy for the Russians, who you could much more make the argument were pushed into a situation that they did not seek, a fight that they did not want, and were, in terms of some of the conditions that the Communist Party imposed on the people in order to win that war. Well, if they were not put in a position where they had little choice, who was? The Germans were, but they were not put in that position. And also, don't forget, after the revolution, there was a civil war with a Western invasion of Russia. So even in terms of the way that they ran their society, in terms of having the secret police and all of that, well, very much like China today, which is encircled by our military bases, it's hard to imagine how people would have an open society when, as soon as they had a revolution, you tried to overthrow their government. Naturally, you're going to wind up with a repressive kind of a culture. Now, again, I'm not an apologist for that, but it's very funny that some people have tried to excuse what he said by saying, well, he empathizes with all sides. And he says that himself at the beginning of the interview. He tries to look into the mind of the Germans. But when it comes to the Russians, he accords absolutely no such empathy or understanding of their historical context at all. So on that score, I would recommend this: A People's Tragedy. That is my favorite book on the Russian Revolution. It's by Orlando Figes. It gives you an idea of what the conditions of Russian society were like that led to the communist revolution. Okay, some people seem to think the idea that that a lot of Americans worked with the Nazis is something that nobody ever thought of before, or nobody talked about until the Fed with the podcast started talking about it. So here's one book. It's called Blowback. This is a classic. In fact, at the time that I bought it, it was so suppressed, I think I had to pay like $100 to get this book.
This is a lot of books. This is almost as many books as Daryl Cooper has read.
Almost, not quite.
Almost. I mean, that guy's read so many books. He's read a lot of books. You should not only listen to all 85 hours of his podcast, you should read the 50 books that he's read.
Of course. Yeah. All right. So Blowback, this is about Operation Paperclip, where we brought all these Nazis into the country. And it's called blowback because it points out how much bringing these fascists into the intelligence services influenced our foreign policy. How it essentially makes the argument the Nazis did win the war through another avenue, that in many ways we took on the policies of the Nazis. Now,
that's the famous George Carlin quote. Wasn't a part of his stand-up back, but he said, Germany lost the war, fascism won it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the point of blowback. All right. So, if you want to understand, some people have talked about, well, Chamberlain is the one who actually declared war. And I did touch on the fact that Chamberlain and his whole generation was traumatized by World War I. And that was a big part of why they were so determined not to go to war with Germany, because they had been through that and they didn't want to put another generation through what they had been through. This is a very good history, and it actually talks a lot about Chamberlain's service in World War I and what he experienced. And that will give you a lot of insight into why he made those decisions. So this is Martin Gilbert. And I dropped this one, but over there is a book called American Axis that I like, that gets into Henry Ford and Charles Lindbergh, and the fact that Ford essentially committed treason against the United States, and his chief assistant was probably a Nazi agent, and how he distributed the protocols of the Elders of Zion to all of his dealerships. So none of this is stuff that we're just finding out now. That book, I've had that book probably for about 20 years. So if you do want to go to credible sources to learn about these things that Daryl Cooper is completely misleading you about, those are the ones I would recommend.
Yeah. Sounds good. Sounds good. I got nothing to add to that. I think that is the button on part 2 of our Daryl Cooper trilogy. Part 3 will be this Thursday. Tune in.
Part 3, we're calling part 3 Brokeback Tucker.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, I think we touched on just about everything. All right, folks. We got one more segment to do, but before we do that, I want to tell you guys about Rumble Premium. This is a sponsorship directly from Rumble, and it's one that is incredibly important to the survival of Rumble as a platform. So when Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair. They treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions on issues like COVID, but they did. Facebook admitted they fell to pressure, from the Biden and Harris administration. That was in the letter that Mark Zuckerberg sent to Congress last week. Rumble did not cave to that pressure. They held the line for free speech, and they are attacked daily for giving channels like us a voice to talk to you. So they are attacked in corporate media. They are attacked by governments like France. They are attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. Corporate America is fighting to remove speech. Rumble is fighting to keep it. Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers because they don't get much of it. So watching our show on Rumble is the most they can ask from you. But if you really believe in the fight, and if you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. That is the ad-free version of Rumble. So join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription to Rumble Premium. So go to rumble.com/premium and use promo code STUDIO. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now is the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we are just happy if you watch us on the platform. All righty. That is our penultimate segment of the day. But we're going to take some more super chats before we wrap here, folks. Mountain Dew Ramen for $5 says he's an expert because his grandpa watched a lot of History Channel in the late 90s. Thank you, Mountain Dew Ramen. Gavin Hillick, poor planning and logistics. The Germans, okay, bro. Yeah, that's one thing. That's one thing they are not known for is poor planning. That's a good point.
Yes, that's true.
Interesting excuse there. Every period of Israeli atrocity also seems to bring out the Nazi apologists. Well, yeah, they see an opportunity. They see an opportunity. Absolutely. And this is why, look, the Nazi plan for the East was occupation and genocide. Those are two words that sound awful familiar in this context, right? That's because that's the Zionist plan too.
Right.
That's why we compare Zionism to Nazism, Zionism to fascism.
Exactly.
Right?
We don't like any Nazis.
Right. We don't like any Nazis.
Star of David, swastika. We don't like any Nazi emblems.
That's right. Listed it well. Now you got to clarify. The Star of David as the Israel flag is a Nazi emblem.
As the Israel flag.
But that just goes to show you. Because people make an issue out of that. Like
no,
when you
you're
put
right.
the Israel flag in a trash can, they say you shouldn't do that. Well, unfortunately, they've co-opted the Star of David, right?
Well, they've co-opted the whole religion.
The whole thing, exactly, yeah. Stanislav, thanks for the $5. Listening to this Tucker segment, one would think were it not for Churchill, the Nazis would have won. The USSR defeated Hitler, full stop. Well, that's another great point.
Well,
that's another great point. They give Churchill too much credit, on the other hand.
Yes.
Of defeat. No,
And that is
no, but the reason they do that, that's a good point. The reason they do that is because the ultimate irony of this is that the only reason they hate Churchill is because he tried to beat the Nazis, because he helped fight the Nazis. And it's amazing how many people, when they found out that we were not fans of Martyr Maid here, they said, well, you're aware Churchill's a racist? Non sequitur. Irrelevant. Absolutely irrelevant. They didn't even talk about what a bad guy Churchill was in that podcast, beyond the fact that he did not make a deal with the Nazis.
And
that's what they don't like about it.
I listened to the rest of it. It never came up.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they go on to talk about their love of homogeneous ethno states.
Yeah, exactly.
They go on to talk about how people to the point of talking about neighborhoods, how terrible it is if neighborhoods are changed by outside forces. It's we'll get into it on Thursday. Though it is a statement on the intellectual quality of his fans that they thought listening to the rest of that interview would make it better.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. State Department Sagar always looks embarrassed, like he just ate crystal. That should be Kyle's job. Ooh, what a that's crude. That's vulgar, dirty talk. My real name, thanks for the $5. I wouldn't consider him a Holocaust denier, but more of a Holocaust apologist. Well, yeah, I mean yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, but that falls under the umbrella of denialism.
He's an apologist, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Let's see here. Piers Morgan needs to be humiliated on air so he can come later, Eric Russo. Sorry, I just deleted that off the thing so I can't paste it, but I can paste this one. Those weren't the death camps, they were factory farms, Eric Russo. Thank you. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I hate to keep harping on that detail, but like when you say a thing like that and you tweet a thing like you tweet it, like it's just that alone is just disqualifying. Like there's no point in litigating anything else.
We'll get into it more on Thursday. Fucking Tucker later on talks about how terrible it is that Oswald Mosley, the head of the British Fascist Party, was locked up during the war.
Yeah.
Like, why did anyone think that would make it better if we listen to the rest of it? I'm always amazed by the level of stupidity of some people, like I assumed he must say something later that, puts a different spin on it that they keep telling us to listen to the rest.
Oh, no.
No, it only got worse. It only got worse, arguably.
Yeah. No, I was not surprised to hear you say that this morning. I will, I suppose, listen to it tomorrow, I guess, since we're doing it on Thursday, making this a trilogy. Just keep coming back, folks. Just keep coming back. What does our friend Nick say? Banger after banger after banger. That's the way it goes. All right, here we go. Back from the road. Great show today, y'all. Thanks, Back from the road. Rewiring this crawl space a little less shitty. Oh, well, thank you. Glad we could be your entertainment for the day.
Thank you.
Russ says my real name, getting the impression that you don't really respect the alternate history dude. I don't remember his name. Thanks, my real name. Appreciate that. All right. Okay, so RB, My man RB, Edward Black's IBM and the Holocaust documents the definite plan the Nazis had to exterminate undesirables, and American corporations helped. Absolutely, they helped.
Yeah, I've always meant to read that book. I know exactly which book you're talking about. I never got around to it.
Hey, I'm glad you chimed in today, RB. So RB Ham has a show called Beyond the Pale. We've been on. He recently had Savvy on. You talk about a questioner of narratives. This guy thinks the sky is green and the grass is blue. So if he is telling you that the Nazis had genocidal intent, you could take it from him. There's not an official story this guy does not question. I kid you, RB, about the sky. You know that. I say it with love. But yeah, I mean, RB certainly not a narrative humper,
No,
for
he
sure.
is not.
To put it
No,
mildly,
he's not.
to put it very mildly. But RB understands. You know, I mean, like I said, this is the equivalent of 2 + 2 = 4. Like, it's something I didn't even realize was worth articulating. Yeah.
I honestly, look, whenever we do a segment like that, we became aware pretty early on that there were some people who were watching us because they're anti-Semites and they felt our criticism of Israel reinforces their anti-Semitic views, and they particularly like having 2 Jews say it. And they have misinterpreted us as agreeing with their point of view. So I knew when we did this, we were going to get some pushback. I did not realize how many of these dumb motherfuckers had completely misinterpreted our entire show. Like most of what Cooper's worldview is very douchebag dialogues adjacent, and we've been calling it the douchebag dialogues for 5 months.
No, it's very IDW.
That didn't clue you in?
Yeah.
To where we're coming from?
It's to the right of IDW, actually. Like the IDW believe in sort of draconian enforcement of Western values that can definitely walk up to the edge of fascism. This guy's just an outright fascist, just outright naked fascist. Whereas a guy like Dawkins really isn't. I mean, he believes in like murdering people in order to defend democracy, which you could say is fascism of a kind. But his ideal governing philosophy is not fascism. He believes in brutal enforcement of Western values, which I understand. You could say that's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. This guy takes it further than that. This is not mistakable.
The Nazis, basically, people should be left alone
right,
to have their ethno-states.
Right.
The Germans should have been allowed to make Germany for the Germans, and Churchill shouldn't have gotten involved in that.
Well, their views on what America should be. We'll get into that Thursday. China Shell, but you see, he doesn't have blue hair, so his critiques aren't woke and actually based. Exactly, yeah. They only care about allied crimes insofar as they could attempt to make... Oh, did you run out of characters? China Shell, hold on. Let me see if I can read that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Let me see. I can read it. So they can attempt to make the Axis look better. Exactly. And they that's not even implied. That is stated. That is stated in that interview. Yes, they only care about the allied crimes insofar as they could attempt to make the Axis look better, which they do overtly. They don't play hide the ball in that interview. Not at all. It's overt, unmistakable Nazism. All these fakakta books, says Dan Richmond. You guys need the tits and beer segment. Thank you. Hey, we're going to plug your... so what we're doing for you, Dan, is we're alternating every week which day we read the ad for your show so that you get exposure to a different audience each time. So we're going to read your ad for Heben Goy on Thursday. It's going to be great. You should tune in. Let's see here. The number of times Russ says peasant in a show is a lot less than the amount of times I say it during a shift at work. Sent you guys a message. Don't know if you read messages. Where'd you send it? Did you send it in Patreon? I'll check. I think you're a patron. I will check it out. Thank you, though. iBob27, Tucker kind of has the laugh of a little elf that's either being tickled or is tickling. Yeah, it does sound like that when he laughs. Eric Rousseau, will there be a drinking game tonight? Rules, drink when? I don't know. We'll see. I'm catching my kids cold. I can't drink tonight. Drink when we hear a cackle. Yeah, there we go. Thank you very much. Perfect. Okay. Anyone catch Jimmy's "Do you condemn Hamas" moment yesterday? I don't know what that means. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I saw the interview with Epstein, which, I mean, I don't think he was out of line. I mean, you know, the thing is, not at all. I mean, you have the guy on the show. The guy is in a jam. You have him on to promote his work. You agree with him and add to his point, and he shivs you like that. Yeah, that's brutal. That's brutal. And it was such a stupid point, too. So I don't know if that's what you were talking about. I didn't watch the rest of the show because I had to get the boys ready for bed. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Known many educated people in my lifetime, still amazed at huge gaps in their knowledge. U.S. education rewards students with focus so much that common knowledge is blurry, leaving them open for BS. Well, it's funny. Russell made that exact same point to me on the phone, basically, that the degradation of our institutions has created a lane for people like Daryl Cooper to sort of to lure in people who have intellectual curiosity that's not being satisfied by our like traditional structures. So,
that's it.
These
people
I'm gonna give
like
that a heart, Sparky. You earned it. Thank you.
These people like Doris Kearns Goodwin,
right.
Meacham, I mean, it's so obvious they're just peddling these establishment narratives to reinforce the idea that in the end, America always does the right thing. That, yeah, man, anyone who sees it doesn't really work like that, they go looking at other people. And as I just hope I demonstrated with some of the books I showed, there are credible sources out there. You don't have to go to a Fed with a podcast.
Yeah.
There are credible sources out there that challenge those narratives.
Kyle Woolley, thanks for the $5. If it wasn't for Joe Stalin, we'd all be speaking German. Sprechen Sie Deutsch. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate that. Okay, so off topic. Have you guys ever talked to Shama about her ties to the Trotskyist Socialist Alternative Party? Thoughts to Trotskyism? Thanks, guys. Okay, I hate to do this to you. I hate to do this to you, but she told us something in confidence that I think she'll make public soon. So she asked us not to say it, so we won't. But I have a feeling it'll come as good news to you. I hate to be coy, but I can't talk out of school about something I was told in confidence. But all I can say to that is stay tuned. All right. Wow, that was a weird question to get just like shortly after she told us that, right? Yeah. Is that Shama? Is that Shama's burner? Are you testing my loyalty? Yeah. Are you testing to see if I'm going to spill the beans?
Trying to see if we're
trying to
we're
feel
reliable.
Us out? Is that what's going on? Trying to feel us out
before she shares the plan for the
seriously, what are the odds of getting a question like that so shortly after we talked to her? But anyway, Sparky, thanks for the $5. Maybe you're right, and Tucker was up to something, but he is a product of the focus rewarding U.S. education system. So there's that. Thank you, Sparky. Appreciate that. Okay, we got one more segment to do here, folks, before the end of the show. This is some news out of the Venice Film Festival. The Israel-Gaza conflict in focus at Venice Awards ceremony as multiple winners voiced support for the Palestinian people. Some encouraging news from across the pond. The Venice Awards ceremony had a political edge on Saturday evening as multiple winners used their acceptance speeches to express sympathy for the Palestinian people and condemn Israel's military campaign in Gaza. As a Jewish American artist working in a time-based medium, I must note I'm accepting this award on the 336th day of Israel's genocide in Gaza and 76th year of occupation, said U.S. Director Sarah Friedland as she accepted the Luigi De Laurentiis Prize for Best First Film for Familiar Touch. So here she is.
As a Jewish American artist working in a time-based medium, I must note I'm accepting this award on the 336th day of Israel's genocide in Gaza and 76th year of occupation. I believe it is our responsibility as film workers to use the institutional platforms through which we work to redress Israel's impunity on the global stage. I stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine in their struggle for liberation.
Good for her. I just want to take note because, look, this is progress of a kind, but, there's a room full of artists. Look at what a nervous applause that is. Look at you see a lot of people not knowing what to do.
At least you got an applause.
Yeah, at least you got an applause. At least you didn't get a boo. I mean, you can't get a boo at this moment because that exposes your anti-wokeness, right, if you boo her for that. But pretty tepid applause from the crowd. But an applause nonetheless, and good for her for sticking her neck out, especially as a young filmmaker. These film festivals are supposed to be where young filmmakers go to launch their careers, not to ruin their careers. And saying a thing like that could have the opposite effect. Friedland's film, which played in the Horizons competition, also won the section's Best Director award, while Kathleen Chalfant clinched Best Actress for her performance as a woman getting used to life in an assisted care home. Chalfant also alluded to the conflict in her speech, expressing her hope that the catastrophic turn of events in the region would come to an end so that the people on both sides could live in peace, freedom, and justice. That was the milquetoast version of what the director said. Palestinian filmmaker Skandar Kopti echoed Friedland's words as he accepted the Best Screenplay prize in the Horizons section for his Happy Holidays, about 4 interconnected characters living in Haifa, navigating different generational and cultural backgrounds. I stand here deeply honored yet profoundly affected by the difficult times we're living through over the past 11 months. Our shared humanity and moral compass have been tested as we witness the ongoing genocide in Gaza, he said. This painful reality reminds us of the devastating consequences of oppression, which is a theme in our film. Our film looks at how moral narratives can bring us together as communities, but also blind us to the suffering of others. So, look, a couple things to say about this. Number one, Russ is putting together this arts festival that we're going to do next spring. Part of the goal of that is to cultivate an arts community that reflects, I won't even say the radicalism, because there's nothing radical about being pro-Palestine. It's just humane. But reflects the values that artists should be expected to have at this point, quite frankly, and the guts that artists should be expected to demonstrate. And then there's also, and you talk about a third rail. If you thought the Daryl Cooper thing was controversial, we won't get too into this because I don't want to alienate our boomer friends. But you see, the young people are starting to just speak out anyway. Right. I mean, this is a film festival. This is a Venice Film Festival. It's a huge, huge festival, like on the level of Sundance and Berlin and Cannes. Sure. I mean, this is a massive festival. You're a young filmmaker. You get a film in here. You're on your way. Your next step, especially now that the Hollywood model is so much, we're going to take these young indie filmmakers and give them a superhero film so we can make some money off them. Right. Because that's what they do. It didn't used to be that way. It used to be a hot filmmaker came up, they were the next Quentin Tarantino. They were kind of a high profile indie filmmaker their whole life. Now, I forget the name of the filmmaker. He made that great movie called Fruitvale Station about the police killing, I think, in Oakland. He went on to get the Black Panther movies, right? Now that's what they do. They suck you in and they give you a huge job. Right. You get a ton of money, and now you're in the system, and you get to make one of your indie films every few years, but now you're in the studio system, which is a huge payday. So that's what directors, I mean, that's the path you're on when you get a film into a festival like this. And there's a lot to lose when you say a thing like that, in no uncertain terms, calling it genocide. Yep. But whether it's Columbia University or whether it's the Venice Film Festival, there seems to be a pattern of young people not giving a fuck anymore. Right.
Her agent had to call the self-deletion hotline after that.
Yeah, exactly. There's something, whether it's, college campuses or film festivals like this, there's a pattern of young people just not giving a fuck anymore. Just saying what they feel anyway. And that should be encouraged. It should be applauded.
Yes. Given the realities of Hollywood and the entertainment industry, that and where she is in her career, that was incredibly courageous of her. Like literally, she's probably going to have a hard time getting a job now. Like that's a pretty serious move for somebody to make right on the verge of breaking out.
A big break, yeah. Absolutely. Alrighty. Let's take some. Do we have any more super chats here? I think we have one more. Sparky, thanks for the $5. Apparently, the UK wasn't that keen on Churchill in his heyday. He was quickly voted out.
He was. The war wasn't even over.
He was.
No, the war wasn't even over when he got voted out.
That's right. I mean, it's that the other thing that was really amazing about that is so many people insisting that, I mean, you talk about, talk about how illogical people are about this. They will tell us that, basically, we say that, this guy is, defending Hitler. And they say, well, you're just saying that because he's bashing Churchill, he's defending Hitler. But then your response to us bashing Hitler is to bash Winston Churchill, as if we know that. Like, don't you understand you're committing the exact same logical fallacy that you are accusing us of doing? You're accusing us of saying that because you're basically accusing us of saying that because Hitler's bad, Churchill is good. And then you're doing the exact same thing. Because when we point out how Hitler's bad, you assume that means because we think Churchill is good.
Right.
Yeah.
Which again, if you actually had any background in the subject, I mean, just as a person taking an interest in it, you would know that where he's right, these are very pedestrian points.
Yeah, exactly.
That anyone who knows anything about the subject already knew. Like, he's not blowing the lid off anything here.
Right.
What is unique about him is the Nazi apologia, because these ideas have been considered fringe. Usually you only find them among white supremacist sources. For somebody to present himself as a historian of some kind and to say, nah, you know, the only thing in the East was, you know, they didn't order enough cans of tuna.
Right.
That's really remarkable. And as Keaton keeps pointing out, it wouldn't really matter what he has to say on any other subject. Your credibility, that is a credibility ending statement.
Yes.
That's it. You have no credibility after you say something like that, claiming to know what you're talking about.
Yes. Mein Kampf, the Gemlich letter, 1939. He warns, if the financiers push us to war, it will be the end of the Jews in Europe. Right? The general plan O's. I mean, over and over and over and over again in speech and in writing. Like, that's why I say it's not only the most established fact. It's not like this is based on, you know, some ancient myth. This is the most well-documented, with primary sources, historical fact of the 20th century, you could argue. I think pretty strongly you could argue that. And so to base any analysis of the sort of relative leadership and or morality of Hitler and Churchill, to base any of that on that formulation, that they did not have genocidal intent long predating the war itself, not just Operation Barbarossa, the war itself.
Right. Right.
Again, that is discredited.
That is
disqualified.
that is credibility ending.
Yes, exactly.
I understand this guy is and hey, man, this is what we were talking about. It was you know, we'll get into it more Thursday. It was inevitable that this budding right-wing nationalist movement that feeds on the legitimate resentments of working people would eventually produce some kind of a pseudo historian to go along with their pseudo intellectuals and pseudo philosophers. And so they came up with this Fed.
Right. Indeed. Make Deutschland great again. Thank you, Bonzo Beans. It should have been a standing ovation. Shame on those so-called artists. They just proved that Russell's correct about them and their culture. There you go.
Yes.
I agree with that.
Look. You know, we never got around to dropping this. In case we had not made the point explicitly enough in this episode.
This name of this one is Nazi Punks Fuck Off.
There you go. Look, this ad popped up. Let's sell
some
coffee.
I guess we didn't learn our lesson, Keith.
No, not yet. All right, sell some coffee before we go. Folks, do you enjoy the free speech that Rumble is protecting and fighting for? Our show on Rumble is only possible thanks to our viewers supporting Rumble's platform by pitching in and purchasing some of Rumble's products. So most of you drink coffee every day. I know I do. I know Russell does. And that's why you got to try Rumble's $17.75 coffee. It's actually some of the best coffee you'll ever taste, and it's the same price as the coffee you buy now, but it's way better, and it comes in 16-ounce bags, so you don't have to replace it as often as you do the store-bought coffee, which only comes in 10-ounce bags, as we know. Very annoying. Rumble's $17.75 coffee is free from chemicals and rich in flavor. This is because their beans are sourced from high-altitude farms in Bolivia, handpicked, roasted weekly at their facility in Miami, and delivered fresh to your doorstep. And as believers in freedom, buying from Rumble helps fight back against corporations like Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts. Join the coffee revolution and brew rebellion with Rumble's 1775 coffee. So go to 1775coffee.com, use code STUDIO, and get a free month's supply of their cognitive boosting supplement, Limitless, when you buy 2 bags of their coffee. So think about that. That's a crazy deal. And the supplement is worth more than the 2 bags of coffee. That cognitive boost, you can debate Darryl Cooper if you take that for a month. You'll be smart enough to go toe-to-toe with the great Darryl Cooper. So go to 1775coffee.com and try their amazing coffee using coupon code STUDIO.
All right.
Beautiful. All right. Well, that concludes the first half of our programming. We will be back at 8:45 p.m. Tonight for some live debate commentary. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Family friend was a Fulbright scholar, a brilliant student. He had a PhD in ancient Greek. Now he's retired from teaching, has time to browse the net, believes Elvis and JFK Jr. are alive, and tells everyone. Well, maybe Tucker can book him next. And everybody can call anybody stupid who doesn't agree with it.
Who doesn't agree with it? I will recommend a kind of a low budget but really fun movie on that subject. Bubba Hotep. Anybody who hasn't seen it, the premise is Elvis faked his death, but they forgot about him, and he's in like an old folks home, and he's in there with Ozzie Davis, who claims to have JFK's brain. They put JFK's brain in his body after he died.
Wow.
So it's the two of them in a rest home. Ozzie Davis with the brain of JFK and Elvis.
There you go.
You never saw that?
No.
It's a fun movie. It's a fun movie.
All right, Noah Goop. What's happening in the chat the last few segments is what Russ talked about. People latching on to anything anti-establishment, and that segment of your audience is having their brains melted. Nocturnal Human, here's support for my Jewish brothers. Fuck Nazis and their apologists, and fuck Zionists. Amen. Hey, it's no skin off our back, brother. No skin off our teeth.
Yep.
Not off our back, off our teeth. Sorry for the mixed metaphor there. No. Well, we did one. We lost a couple dozen subs, got them right back, no problem whatsoever. We'll lose a couple dozen off this. We'll get them right back, and we'll lose a couple dozen on Thursday and get them right back. It's not a big deal.
That is how much power you fucking people have. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
We are sorry if we recreated the disappointment that the women who have had the misfortune to go home with you have felt. But now both of them. But now you can see what things looked like from her point of view. Like Darryl Cooper, you can empathize.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Muhammad Zagari, thanks for the $1.99. Love these guys from Palestine. Thank you, Muhammad. Are you from?
You.
Wow, there you go. Give you a heart there. Alrighty, everybody. Thank you very much. We appreciate you all. We will see you back here at 8:45 p.m. Join our Substack. You'll get a link. That's our newsletter, our free newsletter. We'll have a link out for you shortly. We will create it upon the conclusion of this stream. We will see you guys back here tonight, 8:45 p.m. Debate night in America. Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. The big game with the Due Dissidents crew. So come and hang out with the cool kids for that. DueDissidents.substack.com to join the newsletter. You'll get the email. Even if you sign up for free, you'll get the newsletter. So please do that. Everybody else, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't watch the debate with us. I mean, what could possibly be your excuse not to watch the debate with us? But assuming you don't make it, we will see you back here at a special time, Thursday at noon Eastern. Thursday at noon. Until we see you again, thank you very much, Rumblers and YouTubers, for this afternoon. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.